my name is Whitney Baxter. I am going to be a fourth year at The Ohio State University, and I'm majoring in visual communications design and minoring in business and architecture. Architecture and design are the ultimate means of problem solving. They help people in times of crisis and with everyday obstacles through innovation and ingenuity. Typically, when we think about architecture and design, we think of the greats. So that is to say, we analyze the famous work of creators that has created things that have lasted through time and stayed iconic. Take Falling Water by Frank Lloyd Wright, for example. I think some of you will recognize this one. Works like this hold importance in the world of architecture because they explore new principles that people can study and that future creators can learn from to push modern architecture even further. But what immediate purpose now, at this very moment, does it serve? Outside of those in the architectural field, who is it helping? This raises the question, what kind of design is for everyone? And what are more immediate and currently relevant examples of design at work? I'm going to argue that some of the most overlooked, but also the most ingenious and effective works are the ones that don't last, the temporary ones. Temporary design is easy to miss. We don't usually learn about it in class because it doesn't become memorialized. Temporary concepts are created, they serve their purpose to the extent of their ability, and then they're removed. They don't even get the chance to become famous or well-known. But this, however, does not make it unimportant. Temporary design also serves as one of the most effective ways to help people in times of intense need. So anyone who studied design, architecture, or even art history has probably heard of Frank Lloyd Wright, whose work I displayed earlier. But someone you may not have heard of is 𝘱𝘳𝘠𝘴𝘠. 𝘱𝘳𝘠𝘴𝘠 is a world-renowned Japanese architect. He has created many famous permanent works such as upscale homes and other types of lodgings. But what Bond does best, and what are arguably his most beautiful and important projects, are the ones that disappear. Bond specializes in designing for those who are victims of natural disasters. The whole goal of Bond's work is to quickly provide shelter for people who've been displaced from their homes. For this, all of his designs are built to serve a purpose to the people who need them, and then are quickly taken down once their use is up. His signature is working with accessible and inexpensive materials, but he's most well known for using durable paper tubes, which he designed himself. Using his paper tubes makes his work easier to actualize. They're structurally sound enough to provide reliable shelter and protection for the residents, while also being easy and inexpensive to provide. Projects using these meet the subject's basic and immediate needs. They're simple and to the point, but they can be elegant at the same time. Bond's projects are also designed so that they can be understood and assembled by anyone, and then disassembled just as easily also by anyone. This way, once people no longer have a use for the shelters, the work can be taken down and something new can be created in its place. So some examples of his work. In 1995, a massive earthquake struck Kobe, Japan, damaging over 120,000 structures and leaving masses of people homeless. Bond and his team responded to this with the Kobe paper log house. So as you can see, these are very simple houses. The same design is used for each one, and the materials used are the same across all the homes, but it's very clearly a home. The houses were constructed from thick paper tubes, wood, tenting material for the roof, and used donated beer crates filled with sandbags for their foundation. All of these are very simple materials. They're not flashy or glamorous by any means, but they don't need to be because they get the job done just as well as anything else. These are obviously not long-term homes, but they were available and ready when people had nothing else to go to. The homes were praised for their low cost, simple application, and easy accessibility. And once the units weren't needed anymore, they were quickly taken down and their parts were recycled. These houses went on to house thousands of displaced victims, and Bond has actually done similar projects elsewhere across the world. Bond's disaster relief works extend beyond just housing too. In 2009, L'Aquila, Italy was struck by an earthquake. In 2011, Bond designed a temporary paper concert hall for the city. This was part of a push to support the reconstruction of L'Aquila, which was famous for its music scene. The concert hall was, again, built out of the signature paper tubes, steel, clay, and glass, so that it was more durable but still easy to assemble. Even though this project is also temporary, Bond still found ways to make it beautiful and still emulate that elegant concert hall feel. He did this also through simple solutions. such as setting up a red curtain around the outside of the auditorium space. It's simple, but it's striking. Even with the limited materials used, Bond could still design a grand and intimate listening space. Another cool feature to the concert hall is that it can be completely taken down and rebuilt again elsewhere. Today, we see examples of temporary design aiding how we combat the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. With the virus being so sudden and quick to spread, creators have to devise on-the-spot solutions to the situation. Italian architect and engineer Carlo Ratti developed shipping containers that can be turned into individual ICU units. This is part of a project called the 𝘵𝘀𝘪𝘴 project. These shipping containers make excellent isolated units featuring things such as negative pressure to treat COVID patients. The units can all be deployed just as quickly as hospital tents, and each unit functions completely autonomously and can be easily shipped anywhere around the world. In fact, since their design, 𝘵𝘀𝘪𝘴 units have been assembled in Turin, Italy, and similar projects have since been created in other parts of the world. We also see examples of this innovation close to home. Now, nearly anywhere you go, you can find COVID testing facilities, not just at hospitals, but also smaller medical facilities like pharmacies and drugstores. These weren't built with the intent of becoming testing locations, but quick innovation turns them into accessible testing spots. Across the nation, we've seen examples of cities converting whatever spaces they can into places to take care of sick patients, whether it be convention centers, arenas, or ballparks. Even in Toledo, at one point, there was discussion about turning the 𝘱𝘳𝘠𝘦 Convention Center into a medical facility to house overflow COVID patients. So, why is temporary design so effective? What makes it such an excellent proponent of helping people? Firstly, just the state of temporality alone makes work accessible. If something is going to be temporary, there's less need to put a ton of money into materials and excess aesthetics, making temporary works more affordable to build. So projects like these are meant for people who need it, not just people who can afford it. Temporary design is also faster to execute. When something is made to be temporary, there becomes less of a focus on all those extraneous details, and there's more focus on the main point. Because it's only temporary after all, why would you worry about anything that doesn't directly serve the intended purpose? Also, with the idea of temporality comes the implication of a set time frame in which the work will be useful. So knowing that there's a limit to a structure's use encourages designers to create and implement faster. Temporary design enables us to address what we're faced with in the moment. It's a sudden solution to a sudden problem. Going off of this, as we have seen, we cannot prepare for every crisis to come our way. Most, if not all, are unpredictable. With these, we need solutions that can be found as fast as possible and also have the capacity to adapt and change with the problem. Temporary structures also go hand in hand with the concept of mobility. Robert Cronenberg is a professor at the University of Liverpool and an author of many architectural and design books. He argues that mobility has potency. Design should be as dynamic as its environment. Creating dynamic structures opens up possibilities in other realms too, such as reuse, recycling, and sustainability. Cronenberg explains that using temporality adapts to unpredictable demands, provides more for less, and encourages innovation. All of this is not to say that permanent solutions are ineffective, of course. Design that deals more with permanence has immense problem-solving capabilities. But if we pay more attention to the methods and effects of temporary design, it can be worked into permanent design to create even more powerful solutions, and the two can balance each other out. There are multiple ways to do this. One great way that permanent and temporary design can be combined is through designing permanent structures that feature temporary aspects or components that can be changed and modified as needed. A beautiful example of this sort of work is the Via Verde, designed by architect Alejandro Aravena and his firm Elemental. The goal of this project was designing mass housing for displaced families in the city of Constitución, Chile. Aravena designed a series of half-finished houses. The developed halves of the homes are designed and constructed completely by Elemental, and all of them are identical. This half is simple and meets the needs of the family residing there. The second half is initially left completely bare. The idea behind this is that as families move in and get settled, they can develop the incomplete half however they please. This way they can cater it to their wants. Here, the homes are literally half temporary and half permanent, and the two are used together for a changing solution. The permanent part addresses basic needs, and the temporary part makes the home unique and special. So design has immense power to problem solve. It seems that as of late, we've been faced with a number of imposing and life-altering issues, obviously the most prevalent of which being the pandemic. With these new and constantly changing problems, we're forced to look at solutions differently than we may have in the past. Traditionally, we approach architecture and design with permanent approaches in mind, but taking a look at temporary and mobile solutions for major issues has proven to yield some of the most effective outcomes. Integrating temporary design into our usual creation processes gives us the advantage of being dynamic, making it possible for us to adapt to issues at hand. It also brings with it immediacy. Blending the permanent and the temporary together can create a beautiful balance of foundation, security, and adaptability. I believe that this way of thinking can be applied to the problems we may deal with in our own lives. When you're faced with a problem at home in regards to work, school, whether it has to deal with coronavirus, social unrest, or just something specific in your own life, how will you address that problem? Will you try to search for one ultimate fix, or can you deal with it in a way that's dynamic? I think that to be able to look at something and think of it as being flexible and dynamic lets us see that thing as having so much potential. Instead of just looking at things as how they are, we can actually look at them as what they could become and what they could do. This is a beautiful mindset. We can see the world around us and the situations that we're in as having the potential to grow and become better. Next time you look out your window at your city, think about what it is, what it's trying to be, and the issues that it has. Do you see a stagnant place, a place that will always be what it has been? Or do you see a place with potential, a place that can change and grow? The answer is probably much more promising than we realize. Thank you.